1st Division Captain Genrusei Shigekuni Yamamoto calls for a meeting of all the Soul Reaper captains to discuss the bound threat. Captain Toshiro Hatsugaya is tasked with defeating the bounds, and Yamamoto gives a standing order to kill all suspected intruders without hesitation. In the Rukongai, the area outside the Soul Reaper fortress of Sireti, The Bounce Jin Carrier and Gokoga defeat the Soul Reapers sent to capture them. Meanwhile, Ichigo Kurosaki and his friends enter the Soul Society, and Yodishi Shoin explains that Maki Ichinos, a Soul Reaper under Kariya's command, manipulated Captain Mayuri Kurotsuchi into opening the gate into the Soul Society. Ichigo and his friends begin to search different parts of the Rukongaki for the bounce. While searching, Rukia Kuchiki is attacked by the bound Yoshi. Caught without her Zanpakuto, Rukia is quickly overpowered by Yoshi. Meanwhile, Yamamoto is explaining the origins of the bounce to the assembled captains, and a messenger informs him that Rukia is fighting a bound. As Rukia is about to receive a fatal blow from Yoshi, Captain Byakuya Kuchiki arrives and attacks her. Following the fight, several buildings in the Sireti explode. Byakuya sends Rukia to the Kuchiki clan's house to recuperate. In the Rukongai, Karya enters Kusajishi, one of the most crime-ridden parts of Rukongai, and asks the populace to aid him in fighting the Soul Reapers. Ichigo, Yuryu Ishida, and Yasutara, Chad, Seido begin searching for the bounce again, and Ichigo takes the modified Soul Liren with him. Elsewhere in a forest in the Rukongai, Byakuya encounters Karya. Byakuya and Karya begin their battle, and Karya reveals his doll Mesa, which gives him the ability to control wind. Byakuya uses his Shikai, but Karya uses a barrier of wind to deflect his attack. Ichigo arrives to assist Byakuya, and after using his Bankai, begins to fight Karya. With Karya focused on fighting Ichigo, Byakuya uses his Bankai, and manages to penetrate Karya's wind barrier. However, Karya heals himself, revealing that in the Soul Society, the bounce can consume the spirit particles in the air to restore their bodies. In Kusajishi, Koga and Ichinos convince the inhabitants to join them in their revolt in order to create a new Soul Society. Byakuya and Ichigo continue to fight Karya, who continual Y regenerates all damage by absorbing spirit particles. However, Byakuya and Ichigo begin to inflict larger injuries on Karya, not giving him time to recover. Rantau, the Soul Reaper who created the bounce, arrives and Karya retreats. As Byakuya leaves, Yuryu arrives, and Rantau takes Ichigo and Yuryu to her home. When Yuryu notes that Rantau is identical to the bound Yoshino Soma, Rantau reveals that Yoshino's soul was a copy of hers, and that the bounce were the byproducts of an experiment in which the research team she led tried to create immortal souls. In a forest in the Rukongai, Hatsugaya confronts Ichinos, and begins to fight him as Renji Abarai, Rangiku Matsumoto, Ichigo, and Chad arrive. In Kusajishi, Karya prepares to invade the Sireti. Hatsugaya and Ichinos continue their battle, and Ichinos uses his Shikai, blinding all of those present. As Ichinos is about to attack Chad, his attack is blocked by 11th Division Captain Kenpachi Zaraki. Kenpachi instructs Hitsuga to take the group and stop Karya from invading Sireti, and Ichinos, torn between his loyalty to Karya and desire to avenge his former captain by killing Kenpachi, decides to stay and fight Kenpachi. Kenpachi easily blocks all of Ichinos' attacks, forcing him to use his Zanpakuto to trap him in a sphere of light. Kenpachi removes his eye patch and releases his full power to destroy the sphere. Refusing to surrender, Ichinos attacks Kenpachi a final time, and Kenpachi slices him across the chest, leaving him for dead. With the aid of the Kusajishi inhabitants, Karya and the other bounce enter Sireti. As they enter, Karya kills the Kusajishi inhabitants, claiming that their usefulness has ended. Karya dispatches the bounce to eliminate the Soul Reaper captains, and heads farther into Sireti. 2nd Division Captain Suifang orders her men to attack the bounce, but the bound Mabashi uses his doll Ritz to take control of them. When Suifang asks for a status report, one of her men controlled by Ritz attacks her with a Bito. The Bito incapacitates Suifang with a poison, and Ritz uses the controlled Soul Reapers to cause chaos throughout Sireti by turning them against other Soul Reapers, including 7th Division Captain Sergeant Komamura and 9th Division Lieutenant Shuhei Hisagi, who manage to knock many of the infected Soul Reapers unconscious. Meanwhile, Suifeng attempts to fight Mabashi and hits him once with her Shikai, leaving a mark on his chest. She collapses from the poison, and Mabashi attempts to use Ritz to control her. Suifeng then quickly ikes Mabashi in the chest to deal a fatal blow, revealing that her Zanpakuto allows her to counteract poisons. Elsewhere, Mayuri confronts the bound Savatari. Savatari attacks Mayuri with his doll Bora, and manages to rip Mayuri's left arm off. Mayuri regenerates his arm with his medicine, and uses his Zanpakuto to paralyze Bora. Mayuri then stabs Savatari in the right arm, and Bora manages to overcome the paralysis to retreat with Savatari into another dimension. Savatari surfaces in another location in Seraiti, and Mayuri appears, revealing that he made a scanner to track the bound. Savatari attacks Mayuri with the power of other Soul Reapers that Bora absorbed in previous battles. Mayuri is forced to use his Bankai, and kills Savatari. Elsewhere, Yuryu begins to fight the bound Yoshi. Yuryu and Yoshi begin their battle, and Yuryu realizes that the Quincy battle accessory he is using does not allow him to properly focus his power. When Yuryu is able to properly use the accessory and fire a powerful arrow, Yoshi is able to block it by changing the form of her doll Nida into a fan. She then transforms her doll into a Giant and knocks Yuryu to the ground. Meanwhile, Karia breaks INTO the Department of Research and Development, searching for a bound crest called the Jokasho. Despite the efforts of Chad and Ichigo, Karia finds the Jokasho, and after fusing with it, claims he has enough power to destroy Seraiti. Yuryu and Yoshi continue their battle, and Yuryu is able to defeat Yoshi by capitalizing on Yoshi's weakness of not being able to defend and attack at the same time. Meanwhile, Karia is confronted by Koga, who claims that Karia is insane for desiring to destroy Seraiti. Karia injures Koga and leaves. As Koga tries to follow Karia, he is attacked by several Soul Reapers, and defeats them, which alerts Hatsugaya to Koga's presence. After defeating several Soul Reapers of the 10th Division, Koga meets Hatsugaya. Koga summons his doll dog, who is quickly frozen and shattered by the Shikai of Hatsugaya's Zanpakuto. Koga fuses the remains of Doc into an axe, and Hatsugaya uses his Bankai in response. Hatsugaya injures Koga repeatedly, forcing him to absorb spirit particles to heal himself. But his body begins to reject the spirit particles. Koga makes a final attack on Hatsugaya, who slashes him, and Koga alludes to a future without war, before collapsing. Hatsugaya orders his subordinates to give Koga a proper burial, and 8th Division Lieutenant Nano Eyes informs Yamamoto of the Jokasho. The following day, Rantau confronts Karia, and after seeing the Jokasho, recalls how she hid the bounce in a cave following their creation. After the Soul Society ordered that the bounce be destroyed, she saved a bound child, who she realizes is Karia. Yuryu realizes that Rantau is fighting Karia, and heads towards her location as Rantau is hit by one of Karia's attacks. Karia recalls the events after the Soul Reaper's attack on the bounce. After escaping from the Soul Reapers, he fused with his doll when attacked by a hollow. Desiring to travel to the Soul Society to make peace with their creators, the bounce attempted to use the Quincy to enter the Soul Society, and were defeated. Karia organized the remaining bounce in order to take revenge on the Soul Society. In the present, Yuryu arrives and fights Karia. Rantau uses the Jokasho's power to stun Karia, and asks Yuryu to kill Karia. However, Rantau begins to feel pain from the Jokasho, and Yuryu uses his remaining power to save her, which destroys his Quincy battle accessory. As Karia is about to kill Yuryu and Rantau, Ichigo arrives. Ichigo uses his Bankai and begins to fight Karia. Rantau reveals that there are multiple Jokasho scattered throughout the Soul Society that will detonate when Karia uses his Jokasho, and the Soul Reapers of the 13 Court Guard squads begin to seal all of the Jokasho. Meanwhile, Ichinos arrives and attacks Ichigo, but turns his sword on Karia, claiming that he did not join Karia to watch him destroy the Soul Society. Karia kills Ichinos, and reveals Messer in the form of a sword of wind. Karia uses the wind Messer to produce electricity, and attacks Ichigo with it. Ichigo's inner hollow momentarily takes over his body, but Ichigo regains control of his body, surprising Kariya. Ichigo informs Kariya that he cannot absorb spirit particles to heal himself because Rantau sealed his absorption ability. Ichigo and Kariya engage in a final clash where Kariya is killed. Ichigo concludes that Kariya intended to travel to the Soul Society in order to end his eternal life. Ichigo, Renji and Rukia return to the Kuchiki house to discuss Kariya's life. Ichigo remarks on how his life was changed when Rukia gave him her powers. Renji recalls when he was promoted to lieutenant of the 6th Division, and Rukia reminisces on the day when she was assigned to the real world. Afterwards, Ichigo and his friends return to the real world. Yodishi brings Koga, who survived his fight with Hatsugaya, to Rantau's hideout. Hidden from the Soul Reapers, he is able to recover from his injuries. Koga accepts that the destiny of the bounce is to eventually die out. On the last scene, Ichigo and friends are seen heading to the real world, then a mysterious person is seen entering Karakura town.